I would hold to it being a redemptive ethical framework, that there is like a gradation or steps in moral evolution that is required to reach moral congruency, which is the New Testament, which is why Jesus came. Um, but exterior to that, um,
So why? So then tell me, why would women have to marry their rapists in order for Jesus to be crucified?
I would need to be. Is there some scripture that prescribes that
Yeah,
to
you
marry?
pay if a man rapes a woman who is like to be betrothed but is not yet married, then he pays 50
Yeah.
shekels to her dad.
I mean, I would not be familiar with the scripture. I'll be very. I mean, I'm a very new Christian. I haven't read the scripture through and through, but appealing to the idea of like some like in terms of ethical frameworks, like an ethical redemptive framework, it would be that what is prescribed contextually is that which is to the greatest extent practical or pragmatic for the individuals.
If God can do anything and command anything, then the fact that we can come up with better ideas than rape victims marrying the perpetrator, then I think that seems to fly in the face of this being a divinely inspired perfect text in any kind of way.
I mean, I would disagree because I would say that there's like, in terms of obviously the form of humans, there is a limitation in terms of matter because the matter limits the form. So there would be a limitation to what you can produce in terms of like moral congruency. Therefore, what's prescribed to you to reach moral congruency would be in steps of gradation. It would be contextual. You're influenced by your surroundings. You're not purely actual. You're going to be influenced by what's external to yourself.
That has nothing to do with whether a victim of rape should be forced to marry her rapist. We don't live in that kind of world today, except maybe like in Saudi Arabia or something like that, although I think they just kill them. Both of them, which is, and it's almost like, well, there's one of those things is half good.
Yeah.
So, like, were people just somehow different because we had a different form of matter before the crucifixion, and that's why women had to? I don't get it.
My like when I implied matter there, also when I employed matter there, not implied. It was simply that there's limitation there, so that you are susceptible to influence. There, you don't because God doesn't reason. We reason. We are susceptible to matter. We reason from influences, right? We're influenced by something, therefore we reason based on what is provided to us. So my statement simply there is contextually you're going to be susceptible to what is reliant upon you. So when God is providing his gradations or his evolution towards moral congruency, there are steps. It has to accommodate that specific world of view. Because if he was to go to like say the 17th or the 700s, like the 6th century around Muhammad's era, and simply say, nope, this is wrong, people wouldn't oblige because it's not a norm there. So there would be like a necessary moral evolution to reach moral congruency, which I would suggest is what Jesus fulfilled. He came back and he fulfilled this moral congruency.
God gave untold numbers of lifestyle prescription changes, such as this is how you will build a temple with exactly these configurations. You will sacrifice animals in exactly these ways. You will use exactly this type of wood and this type of oil when you make burnt offerings. You will not work on the Sabbath. You will not, like, I mean, there are 600 something of these commandments, and just the idea that, well, he never outlawed slavery, and he never gave anything close to a remotely logical or just would be the word, like I don't know, not regulation, but whatever, punishments or whatever for violent crimes of the nature which I've been talking about, just makes absolutely no sense. If God can tell you you cannot eat shellfish, he can command you not to violently assault people.
Yeah, so the thing is, it would almost like what's prescribed of the individuals would almost be recursive in terms of the knowledge. So it would follow what the individual is capable of producing. So if I was to tell someone to build a building in a certain way, I would not say that could be like predicated almost analogically of someone being told not to engage in an action they are so conformally engaging in based on the context. Because building a certain like sorry, go on. I,
Dingo, can I say something?
yeah, of course.
Um, I think what you're suggesting is that the laws of the Old Testament were somehow okay back then, but they were like stepping stones to some greater law. Is that what you're getting at?
I mean, I would argue that they were never okay because it's to reach a moral congruency, it was to accommodate like the specific like individual limitations. I would
Okay,
never
can
say
you show
okay.
me where God in the Old Testament ever says that these laws are less than perfect or temporary?
Well,
Yeah,
no,
he
actually,
specifically
I'm an
says you will keep these forever, multiple
Yeah,
times.
I'm
Deuteronomy
sorry.
Deuteronomy states over and over again that this law is an everlasting law, and he says in Psalm 19:7 that the law of the Lord is perfect. And then if you read the messianic scriptures, it literally says that the laws of Moses are going to be reestablished forever.
Okay, I would seriously apologize because I'm a new Christian. I haven't specifically read scripture, so I would not be able to describe like a scripture like context here, like to answer to you. So I would just concede on that point. But I simply have not read the scripture to accommodate that. I'm purely
Right. So
arguing
if
from an ethical position.
Yeah, so if you believe that the like objective morality comes from the Bible, you have to accept the Mosaic law or you have to call Yahweh a liar.
No, I would not. I don't think you need to accept the Mosaic law because I'm saying it's a redemptive ethical framework. But I would need to read the scripture in the context to obtain the understanding of what you're
Yeah.
simply what you're providing to me here. As opposed
So
to that, I wouldn't be able to respond.
yeah, so the I assume that you don't like the laws of Moses, and I assume you haven't read most of them either. But Peterson and I have done that actually.
Yeah.
So let me go over a couple of them and see what you think. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Here's a problematic one. Do you think that women who don't bleed on their wedding night should be executed?
Oh, of course not.
Yeah. Do you think it's problematic that the God of the universe doesn't understand that only about half of women bleed the first time they do it?
Oh, if there was like an implication such that the person doesn't understand, or like an omniscient being doesn't understand, then sure.
Right. So God in Deuteronomy 22 prescribes a young woman who doesn't bleed on her wedding night, prescribes her to be stoned.
Wait,
Do you think that that's a good law?
no, no, I would not say it's in terms of moral congruency. No,
Yeah. Do you think God gave that law?
I mean, sure, yeah. If
Okay.
if that's what the scripture is pertaining to, but I would not say I'm
Yeah.
familiar with the scripture.
Do you see the problem there that God is both barbaric and doesn't understand biology?
Doesn't wait? I asked for the implication of not understanding there. Like, at what point
Who?
does it apply?
What you're not understanding, or what
Oh
God's
no,
not
no,
understanding?
or no, because you suggested there was like a lack of understanding or comprehension there of biology. But I was asking like, well, where is that
Yeah.
in scripture?
All right.
Because I've never seen.
It's in Deuteronomy 22, and it talks about a woman who's not found to be a virgin on her wedding night. And the test for the virginity is to bring out the cloth of virginity. The cloth of the virginity, in fact, is still practiced in some countries where the marital bed has a white cloth laid down, and then when the woman and the man have they go at it for the first time, she bleeds on the cloth, and then that is the evidence of her virginity. That's why it says, um, if they do not find evidence of the daughter's virginity, they will. I'm sorry, but here I'll start from the beginning. The father
Yeah.
of the young woman shall say to the elders, I gave my daughter in marriage to this man, but he dislikes her, and now he has made up charges against her. I did not find evidence of your daughter's virginity, he might say, but here is the evidence of my daughter's virginity. Then they will spread out the cloth before the elders of the town. So the cloth is the evidence that the woman is a virgin. And if it's true, it says in verse 20, if, however, the charge is true that evidence of the young woman's virginity is not found, then they will bring the young woman out to the entrance of her father's house, and the men of the town will stone her to death.
Oh, okay. Which the scripture states that that's prescriptive.
Yeah.
Oh, so if it explicitly states prescriptive, then I suggest you're better off discussing with someone that's more knowledgeable in the scripture, because I will concede there. I have not read the scripture. I would not be able to explain it to you or have any intellectual engagement there. It would purely be a bias if I tried to discuss that with you. So I will concede there.
So do you
Yeah.
concede that
But
it's immoral or illogical?
I would say it's immoral. I would say it's out of line with moral congruency. But I don't think that's actually a problem in terms of like logical coherency for my position. Because I said there was like moral congruency was only obtained through the fulfillment of law.
I don't know what to say to that exactly. What do you mean by fulfillment? The law was never fulfilled until Jesus?
Yeah, of course. The New Testament is the obtainment of moral congruency.
Okay. So it so would the Israelites have been wrong for not following God's commandments? Because it sounds like these commandments are neither right nor wrong until we get to whatever you said, moral congruency or whatever.
Yeah,
So
of
on
course.
what grounds would they even follow them?
Hey, wait, on what grounds do they follow? In terms of like they're adhering to a certain step of the redemptive ethical framework, and prior to moral congruency, they're in like a certain step. Is my correct?
Are the steps good or are the steps bad?
The steps
Are
are
they
the
neither but they are just necessary?
I think the best description I could give is that the steps are deficient in moral congruency. They provide an evolution towards it, and adhering to them would clearly be relative to that state.
Okay,
Now,
so
in that,
they're a progression, not a regression. So in what sense could any of them be bad? Or are you just saying they're neither good nor bad, they're just necessary?
I don't know if necessary would be the term. Conditionally necessary, sure. But in terms of like the steps, the gradations themselves, then they would be deficient in moral ordinance in terms of like what the moral congruent position is. So they would not be. I would not consider them good, and in that sense, I would not consider
Then
the slavery
then
of the Old Testament, etc. I would not consider them good, but I would
then
not consider them.
then
Sorry.
on what grounds does God have to punish anybody for not following the law?
So can you say that one more time? Sorry.
On what grounds then would God have to punish anybody for not following the law? What's his name was killed for picking up sticks on the Sabbath. But apparently those commandments are not moral commandments or whatever you said.
Well, no, I'd be seriously like impartial to like the position here. I'd be very confused on somebody was unalive for picking up sticks on the Sabbath.
Well, God said that had to happen.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I would not be familiar with it like that specific scripture now.
Okay, well, I mean, you don't have to be familiar with the specific verse. You're the one that said these commandments weren't
Yeah.
necessary or they weren't good or bad. So then on what grounds would God possibly have to punish anybody for not following them?
It's going to be relative to like the step of the redemptive ethical framework.
But God
Was that
says
an
to
answer?
follow all the days that you live on the earth. Deuteronomy 12.
How can a commandment that is neither good nor bad be justified in being punished? How does it make any logical sense to punish laws that are either bad or are neither good nor bad? That makes no sense.
My statement simply was in terms of bad, in terms of evil, it's simply going to mean like they have deficiency, but that the perfection of whatever the state is going to be relative to the step or gradation of the redemptive ethical framework. So if you can hold someone accountable for a certain instance contextually under that specific regime, I'll call it, then sure. Like, I don't see the problem there.
The problem is that has nothing to do with what you said earlier because you said these commandments were neither good nor bad. But if you're going to say that, then you're just a moral relativist.
I don't think I. I mean, I apologize. I don't think I conceded to the fact that it was neither good nor bad. What I said.
I'm pretty sure that's exactly what you said. I said, were these laws good, bad, or neither? And I'm pretty sure you said that they were neither, which is why I then asked you, okay, then on what grounds does God have to punish anybody for not following them?
Sorry. What my position simply is that there is going to be a moral congruency, which would obtain like moral ordinance of God, but you can obtain some degree of moral ordinance relative to whatever step of the moral evolution of the redemptive ethical framework you're in. So if there are some laws prescribed under that, they would be deficient of moral congruency, but they would be good relative to that framework. But in terms of scripture, I wouldn't be too familiar on what like the context and the implications of the scripture is.
What you're saying is contradicting what the scriptures say. Scripture says that you must follow the laws all the days that you live on the earth. It's not a progression.
Wait, so what did you say? So I was drinking water. I was not listening.
Yeah, it's not a progression according to the Bible. According to Yahweh, the one who gave the laws, he says you will follow these laws all the days that you live on the earth.
Oh, so wait, so the Old Testament. Oh, if that's like the, what's the word? If that's what's prescribed per the Old Testament, and that you need to discuss with someone that's knowledgeable from the scripture, not myself. And
Right.
if that's what we
understand that you're a Christian, and the book that you believe in is contradicting the point that you're trying to make. Because every time that Yahweh addresses his laws, he refers to them as being eternal, everlasting. He wants people to follow it forever. Even the sacrificial laws says that this will be an everlasting statute.
I would not be too familiar with the scripture there. So if that's the case, I would suggest you discuss with someone more knowledgeable in scripture. And I will concede there. I apologize for dragging it on this long. I'm not too familiar with the scripture, so I can't really respond. So I apologize.
Sure.
But I'll drop them because I'm not too familiar with the scripture to like accommodate the position scripturally. But yeah, I appreciate the discussion now, Peterson and Justin.
All right, good talk to you, Diego.
Have a good one, guys.
See ya.
Cheers.